6 months before graduation, the small coastal town of Harborville buzzed with anticipation. Their local soccer team, the Harborville Hawks, had been invited to a summer youth tournament in Lisbon, Portugal. For most of the players, including Daniel Brooks, it was the first chance to step outside their quiet community and test themselves against teams from across Europe. The only catch? They had to raise nearly $30,000 to cover travel, lodging, and tournament fees. The players and their families threw themselves into fundraising, car washes, bake sales, even an outdoor concert. But the real windfall came from the Hawks' annual spring costume gala, a quirky tradition where everyone had to show up in outfits chosen by the opposite team members. It was supposed to be a lighthearted way to raise money, but Daniel dreaded it. He was a lean, soft-featured 19-year-old who often got teased for looking too delicate on the field. The thought of being dressed up by his mischievous teammates filled him with unease. When the night of the gala arrived, the large community center was strung with fairy lights, a DJ blasted throwback hits, and auction tables lined the walls. The theme was Legends of the Silver Screen. Daniel hoped his teammates might go easy on him, maybe throw him in a goofy superhero costume. But when he opened the garment bag they handed him, his heart dropped. Inside was a flowing emerald satin gown, sequined heels, and a long auburn wig. "Come on, Brooks," his teammate Ethan grinned. "You'll be our movie starlet. You're the only one pretty enough to pull it off." The room erupted in laughter. Daniel wanted to protest, but refusing meant being branded a killjoy, something far worse in the close-knit team. He sighed, muttered "fine," and disappeared into the locker room. When he stepped out 20 minutes later, the hall fell silent. The gown clung to him in ways that exaggerated his narrow waist and long legs. The wig framed his face perfectly, and the quick makeup job done by one of the players' sisters softened his sharp jawline. Suddenly, the teasing quieted. A few people even whispered, "She's actually gorgeous." Daniel flushed, unsure whether to feel humiliated or strangely exhilarated. He caught his reflection in the mirrored wall of the dance floor and froze. For the first time, he saw not just himself in a costume, but a version of himself that looked possible. He couldn't explain why, but a small part of him didn't want the night to end. 2 months later, the Hawks stepped off their flight into the warm night air of Lisbon. The city buzzed with tourists, street music, and golden lights flickering against the Tagus River. For Daniel, it felt like another world compared to Harborville's sleepy docks. The team was giddy, their fundraising had paid off, and they were finally here. But nerves simmered too. The Hawks weren't the favorites. They were the underdogs, facing academies with professional training and polished kits. "Relax, Brooks," Ethan joked as they rode the team bus to the hotel. "If you play as pretty as you looked in that green dress, we'll win the whole thing." The comment earned laughter from the other boys, but Daniel forced a smile. Inside, he still felt unsettled. That night at the gala hadn't left him. When he thought about it, his pulse quickened, not just from embarrassment, but from an odd flicker of longing. The Hawks surprised everyone in their first matches. Their scrappy defense and quick counterattacks earned them 2 wins, and suddenly they were being whispered about by other teams. By the end of group play, they'd clinched a spot in the quarterfinals. But victory wasn't the only thrill. Off the field, Lisbon was alive. Street performers, food stalls, winding alleys with tiled walls, and whispers from the older players about the other side of the city, nightlife that pulsed long after the stadium lights dimmed. One evening, after a hard-fought draw, Ethan nudged Daniel in the hotel lobby. "Come on. We're checking out the Barro Alto district. Nothing wild, just exploring. You in?" Daniel hesitated. The coaches had warned them about venturing out in groups smaller than 4, but the lure of freedom was strong. Soon, 6 of them slipped away into the maze of cobbled streets. The group ducked into a neon-lit bar pulsing with dance music. At first, it seemed like any other tourist spot, cocktails with sparklers, laughter, music. But as Daniel's eyes adjusted, he realized the performers on stage weren't what he expected. They were women, stunning, poised, captivating. Yet when the host introduced them, the boys realized they were trans women, celebrated here as stars, not hidden. Ethan leaned toward Daniel, smirking. "Pretty convincing, huh?" Almost as good as you at the gala. Daniel rolled his eyes, but his cheeks warmed. As the show ended, a tall performer in a shimmering silver dress descended into the crowd. She had piercing green eyes and an energy that commanded attention. She stopped at their table. Well, well. Fresh faces, she purred. I'm Lucia. Welcome to Lisbon. Which of you brave souls wants to see if beauty is more than skin deep? The boys laughed nervously, but Ethan, ever the instigator, pointed at Daniel. Make him over. He's got the bone structure. Daniel nearly spat out his drink. No way. Lucia arched a brow. Afraid you look too good, sweetheart? Before he could reply, the others jumped in, egging it on. Come on, Brooks. One night. Let's see if Lisbon can outdo Harborville's green dress moment. We'll make it interesting, a bet. Ethan slapped the table. Yeah. If Lucia can turn Daniel into someone unrecognizable, we each owe her 50 euros. If she can't, drinks are on her. The group roared in approval. Daniel shook his head furiously, but his voice wavered. This is ridiculous. Lucia leaned closer, her perfume a dizzying mix of jasmine and smoke. Darling, you've already got the canvas. Let us paint. I promise, when you see yourself, you won't want to look away. The table quieted. Everyone's eyes were on him. Daniel's heart pounded. And against every instinct, against the part of him screaming to run, he whispered. Fine. But just this once. The boys cheered so loudly that the bartender shot them a warning glance. Daniel wanted the floor to swallow him whole, but Lucia's hand was already sliding into his, warm and firm. Come with me, Querida, she said smoothly, leading him through a side door behind the stage. The others whistled and clapped, their voices fading as the door closed. Daniel found himself in a dressing room that smelled of hairspray and perfume. Vanity lights glowed across a long mirror cluttered with brushes, powders, and sequins. Costumes hung in every shade imaginable, shimmering under the bulbs. Lucia gestured toward a stool. Sit. Let me see the face beneath the doubt. Daniel obeyed stiffly. His reflection stared back, nervous, pale, trying to look braver than he felt. Relax, Lucia whispered, draping a cape around him. Tonight isn't about mockery. It's about possibility. She began with his brows, brushing them down with wax and painting over them until they vanished. Daniel blinked in surprise as she redrew thin, arched brows higher, instantly reshaping his expression. Already different, she murmured. Foundation, contour, blush, her hands moved with the speed of a painter who knew every stroke. Daniel flinched when she glued on long lashes, but when he looked again, his eyes seemed enormous, bright, almost enchanting. Lucia smirked. I told you. Canvas. She clipped back his hair, pulled a chestnut wig from a stand, and slid it carefully over his head. Loose waves spilled around his shoulders. For a moment, Daniel forgot to breathe. Now the dress, Lucia announced. She pulled a sleek black number from the rack, simple, elegant, but daring. You'll thank me later. Daniel hesitated. I don't. Querida, if you're going to play, play fully. Against his better judgment, he stepped into it. The fabric hugged his frame in ways he didn't think possible. With subtle padding at the hips and chest, the mirror no longer showed a boy in borrowed clothes. It showed someone new. Lucia fastened a silver choker around his neck and placed a final touch, deep red lipstick. She spun him toward the mirror. Daniel gasped. The reflection staring back was not Daniel Brooks. It was a poised young woman with luminous eyes and a smile that could stop a room. Lucia leaned close, whispering in his ear, Her name is Dani. The music outside thumped louder as Lucia escorted him back toward the bar. Dani's legs trembled in the heels, but the rhythm in the room seemed to guide her. Lucia pushed open the door. For a heartbeat, silence. Then Ethan dropped his glass. No. Freaking. Way. One of the other boys blurted, That's not Brooks. That's Dani, Lucia finished proudly, twirling Dani into the center of the floor. The table erupted in disbelief. Jaws slackened, eyes widened, and laughter mixed with stunned murmurs. Ethan shoved money across the table toward Lucia without hesitation. Worth every cent. I wouldn't have recognized him if he walked past me on the street. Dani tried to protest, but the sound that came out was softer, higher, almost musical. The boys roared with shock. And in that moment, with the lights hitting her just right and every eye on her, Daniel Brooks wasn't sure he wanted to correct them. For the first time in his life, being Dani felt, right, the table was chaos. The Hawks players shouted over one another, half joking, half stunned, their voices rising above the music. No way that's Brooks. Brooks is gone, man. That's Dani. She's actually kind of gorgeous. Daniel's cheeks burned, but Dani's lips curled into a nervous smile. Somehow, she couldn't stop playing the part. The wig brushed her shoulders, the dress shimmered under the neon, and the way strangers in the bar were eyeing her, with no clue she wasn't who she appeared to be, sent a thrill down her spine. Lucia raised a glass of champagne. Gentlemen, toast your teammate. Tonight, Harborville has gained a queen. The boys laughed and clinked glasses. Even the shyest among them couldn't deny it. The bet had been won spectacularly, but amid the teasing, Dani caught Ethan staring. Not laughing, not mocking. Just staring. His eyes lingered longer than they should have, and when she finally met his gaze, he didn't look away. Dani's stomach flipped. When she shifted uncomfortably, Ethan leaned over. His voice was low, almost serious. You know, I think I like you better like this. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Don't mess with me, Ethan. I'm not. His tone was flat, honest. Look around. Half this bar thinks you're the prettiest girl here. And I kinda agree. Before Dani could reply, another teammate clapped her on the back, nearly making her spill her drink. Dani, you're buying the next round. That's the rule. Loser of the bet pays. The group roared again. Dani smiled weakly, but her mind was spinning. Later that night, Lucia insisted on walking them back to the hotel. Dani stayed in the dress, heels clicking against the cobblestones, the cool Lisbon air brushing against her bare arms. Tourists turned their heads. Some smiled, some whispered. A few men even whistled as the group passed. Each sound hit Dani differently: embarrassment, exhilaration, confusion. Her teammates teased lightly but not cruelly. Somehow, the usual harsh edge of locker room humor softened. They still saw her, but not as just Daniel anymore. At the hotel steps, Lucia kissed Dani on both cheeks. Remember this feeling, Querida. Don't bury her. And with that, she disappeared into the Lisbon night. Back in the hotel room, Dani finally changed out of the dress. The wig came off, the makeup wiped away, the padding removed. Daniel's reflection returned, tired eyes, damp hair clinging to his forehead. But when he closed his eyes, he didn't see Daniel. He saw Dani twirling under the bar's lights, smiling as strangers treated her like she belonged. And the strangest part? He didn't want that memory to fade. By morning, Daniel hoped the whole incident would fade into a funny memory, like most late-night antics on tour. But as he entered the hotel breakfast hall, silence rippled across the room. Heads turned. Smirks spread. Someone at the back shouted, "Morning, Dani." The room erupted in laughter and applause. Daniel froze, tray in hand. His stomach dropped. They knew. All of them. He slid into a chair beside Ethan, who grinned, utterly unapologetic. Relax. Word travels fast. I may have shared a few photos last night. Daniel's fork clattered against his plate. You did what? Come on, Ethan said, lowering his voice. Everyone loved it. No one's mocking. They're impressed. Across the room, a defender raised his juice glass and called out to Dani, our secret weapon. Cheers followed. Some playful, some sincere. Daniel managed a weak smile, but his insides were tangled in knots. Later that day at training, things got worse or better, depending on how one looked at it. A few teammates kept calling him Dani instead of Daniel. At first, it was just a joke, but by the end of the scrimmage, even the coach accidentally slipped. Daniel, track back. Everyone laughed. Daniel wanted to sink into the turf. But when he made a perfect interception, another player yelled, "Go Dani," with genuine pride, not mockery. Something shifted in that moment. His heart thudded with both dread and strange warmth. That evening, Daniel sat on the balcony of their hotel room, staring at the Lisbon skyline. The tournament's quarterfinal loomed tomorrow, and he should have been focused on strategy. Instead, all he could think about was Dani and the fact she wouldn't leave his head. Ethan stepped outside, tossing him a soda. "You were amazing last night," he said casually. Daniel groaned. "Please. I'll never live it down." "Not true." Ethan leaned against the railing. "I meant it. You were beautiful." Daniel's breath caught. "You're joking." "I'm not." Ethan's voice softened. "When you walked out of that back room, I didn't see Brooks in a dress. I saw someone else entirely. And I couldn't look away." Daniel didn't know what to say. His teammate, his best friend on the team, wasn't laughing. He was serious. Too serious. "Ethan, this is insane." "It was just a bet." "Maybe for you," Ethan said. "But when I looked at you last night, I realized something. I don't think I just like Dani. I think I might like you when you're her." Daniel's chest tightened. For the first time in his life, he realized he wasn't just scared of being laughed at. He was scared of what it meant that part of him wanted to believe Ethan. The quarterfinal match buzzed with tension. The Hawks were up against Sporting Porto Juniors, a local favorite with a roaring crowd behind them. Daniel should have been laser-focused, tracking runs, timing tackles, but his mind was a storm. "Dani, watch your mark," a teammate yelled mid-play. The nickname slipped again, this time shouted in front of hundreds of spectators. Daniel stumbled, flushing red, but quickly recovered to clear the ball. The Porto fans laughed, chanting the name as though it were his official one. "Dani, Dani." The chant spread. His ears burned, but his feet grew lighter. Somehow, the rhythm of the name spurred him on. By halftime, Daniel had made 2 crucial assists. The Hawks went into the locker room tied, but for Daniel, the real battle wasn't on the scoreboard. Inside, the air was thick with sweat and adrenaline. The coach gave his pep talk, but Daniel barely heard it. All he could feel were the eyes of his teammates, some amused, others encouraging. Ethan nudged him. "Ignore it. Or don't. Own it." Daniel's jaw clenched. "You don't get it. It's not just a nickname anymore. It's spreading." Ethan leaned closer, lowering his voice so only Daniel could hear. Maybe that's not a bad thing. Daniel wanted to snap back, but the words stuck. Was it really so terrible that they saw him as Dani? When the whistle blew, something inside Daniel shifted. Instead of shrinking from the chant, he let it fuel him. Every Dani from the crowd pushed him faster, sharper. In the 70th minute, he cut past 2 defenders and crossed the ball perfectly for the winning goal. The Hawks erupted, the bench cleared, and his teammates piled on top of him, chanting his new name. "Dani, Dani." Daniel lay on the grass, chest heaving, face pressed against the turf. And for the first time, instead of fighting it, he let the sound wash over him like a wave. As they left the field victorious, Ethan threw an arm around him. "See? Dani wins games." Daniel didn't reply. He was too busy replaying the crowd, the chant, the feeling that maybe, just maybe, Dani wasn't a joke. Maybe Dani was the part of him that had been waiting to breathe. The Hawks' quarterfinal win was the talk of the tournament. Reporters scribbled notes, coaches whispered about the underdogs from Harborville, and fans lingered around their bus hoping for autographs. But Daniel's victory wasn't the only thing people noticed. "Dani, Dani." The chant followed him even as he boarded the team bus. Some kids waved homemade signs with his number and, unbelievably, the name Dani scrawled across them. He slumped into his seat, cheeks burning. It had started as a bet, a joke, but now the name had a life of its own. Back at the hotel, Daniel thought he could escape into the quiet of his room. Instead, half the team was waiting in the lounge. "Brooks," said Marcus, the team captain, "we need to talk." Daniel braced himself. Teasing? Mockery? But Marcus' tone was serious, almost protective. "You know this thing, Dani, it's gone beyond us. People are watching. Fans, coaches. If you're not okay with it, we'll shut it down. No more jokes. No more nicknames. Just say the word." The others nodded. Some awkwardly, some with real concern. Daniel swallowed hard. He hadn't expected this. He thought they'd just keep laughing, pushing him further into the corner. Instead, they were giving him a choice. His throat tightened. I don't know if I'm okay with it. But I don't want you to stop either. Not yet. The boys exchanged glances. No one spoke. Then Ethan quietly said, then we've got your back. Later that night, Daniel's phone buzzed. A message notification from his sister, Lily. So, Dani, huh? Just saw the clip. You looked amazing. Daniel's blood froze. A clip? He opened the link, shaky footage of the crowd chanting, his cross for the winning goal, and the announcer laughing, that's Dani Brooks with the assist. It was already circulating on social media. Dani wasn't just a nickname anymore. She was a story. Daniel lay awake, staring at the ceiling. His chest ached with confusion. Being Dani had started as humiliation, but somewhere between Lucia's mirror and the stadium roar, something had shifted. He replayed Ethan's words on the balcony. I think I like you better like this. For the first time, Daniel let himself imagine what it would mean if Dani wasn't just a costume. What if Dani was real? The thought terrified him. But it also made him smile in the dark. 2 days later, the Hawks walked into the stadium for their semi-final. The stands were packed, louder than ever, and to Daniel's horror or secret thrill, a whole section of fans held banners with his number and the word Dani painted in bold letters. The announcer leaned into the mic, his voice booming. Harborville's rising star, Daniel Brooks, or should we say Dani Brooks? The crowd cheered wildly. Cameras zoomed in. Daniel's stomach twisted. His teammates rallied around him, patting his back, grinning. Even Coach, usually so strict, muttered, use it. If it gives us an edge, use it. The match was brutal. Their opponents, a Spanish Academy squad, were relentless, faster, sharper, trained since childhood for moments like this. Every time Daniel touched the ball, the crowd erupted with chants of Dani. Dani. At first it rattled him. But midway through the second half, something inside him clicked. He stopped fighting it. He stopped being Daniel trying to prove himself. He let Dani take over, swift, fluid, daring. With 10 minutes left, Dani intercepted a pass, spun past 2 defenders, and fired the winning goal into the net. The stadium exploded. Commentators shouted her name. Teammates swarmed her. And in that chaos, Daniel realized he wasn't thinking of himself as Daniel anymore. Back in the locker room, the Hawks were electric, chanting and celebrating. But Daniel sat quietly in front of the mirror, sweat dripping, heart hammering. The reflection staring back was a boy in a uniform, but behind the eyes was Dani. Ethan crouched beside him, grin wide. You did it again. Dani won it for us. Daniel opened his mouth to protest, to insist it was still him, still Daniel, but the words died. Instead, he whispered, maybe Dani did. Ethan didn't say anything. He just placed a hand gently on Daniel's shoulder and squeezed. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. His phone buzzed nonstop with messages. When he finally opened one, his breath caught. A sports blog had posted. From Daniel to Dani, Harborville's secret weapon shines in Lisbon. The article wasn't cruel. It wasn't mocking. It praised his skill, his confidence, and even suggested that the Hawks' magic came from their mysterious star finding her true self on the field. For the first time, Dani wasn't just a nickname in whispers or chants. She was a headline. The Hawks' hotel lobby was a circus the next morning. Reporters crowded the entrance, camera flashes bouncing off the glass doors. Fans held signs with Dani scrawled in glitter, hoping to catch a glimpse of Harborville's surprise star. Daniel tried to slip through unnoticed, hoodie up, but it was useless. Microphones were shoved toward his face. Dani, are you the Hawks' secret weapon? Do you prefer Dani or Daniel? Is this just a nickname or something more? His mouth went dry. He stammered, I'm just here to play football. The reporters laughed, mistaking his nerves for shyness. Fair enough, Dani, one said, jotting notes. When he finally escaped inside, his teammates clapped him on the back, teasing. But their laughter wasn't cruel. It was Protective, almost proud, that evening Coach pulled Daniel aside. His expression was stern, but his voice carried a hint of worry. "You're playing the best football of your life, Brooks. But the attention, it's getting bigger than the game. You need to decide how to handle it. Ignore it or own it. Either way, don't let it break you." Daniel nodded, but inside, his chest ached. Ignore it? Own it? He didn't know which one scared him more. Later, Ethan found him on the balcony again, the Lisbon skyline glowing gold in the distance. "Reporters are vultures," Ethan said, tossing him a bottle of water. "But they're not wrong. Dani, she's electric." Everyone saw it. Daniel's throat tightened. "But Dani isn't real. She is real," Ethan interrupted softly. "I saw it the moment you walked out in that dress. And I see it every time you step on the pitch now. You're faster, sharper, braver. That's not just a disguise. That's you." Daniel stared at him, speechless. Ethan's eyes softened. "The question is, are you ready to admit it?